In this presentation, we will present our paper titled Disentangling Disentangled Representations Towards Improved Latent Units via Diffusion Models. In this work, we propose a novel approach to unsupervised disentangled representation learning using diffusion models. Disentangled representation learning, or DRL for short, aims to discover the fundamental factors from observed data. This involves identifying and understanding intrinsic elements that make up the data, such as color or shape. Since it is difficult to access ground truth factors for complex real-world data, we approach this problem in an unsupervised manner. Unsupervised DRL typically leverages the rich latent space of generative models, while also considering additional inductive biases for disentanglement. In previous research, variational autoencoder-based models have shown a trade-off between image quality and disentanglement. Generative adversarial network-based methods inherit GAN's drawbacks, such as training instability and lack of sampling diversity. Therefore, we aim to overcome these limitations by employing diffusion models, which have not been extensively studied in this context. Previous research on DM-based DRL has focused solely on the independence between latent units, attempting to associate a latent unit with one of the ground truth factors. However, there has been no consideration of whether a single latent unit adequately reflects an attribute of the ground truth factor. In response, we propose an inductive bias to address this. In the figure, we visualize the latent unit that is the most related to the object color factor across multiple data points. The existing DM-based DRL model, EncDiff, somewhat reflects the object's color attribute, but the boundaries between color regions are ambiguous. This ambiguity means that even when sampling from the blue region, data with red attributes may appear, reducing the practical utility in downstream tasks. In contrast, when applying our method, the boundaries are clear and the latent unit accurately reflects the corresponding factor. This improved representation results in latent units with more precise factor information, making them more interpretable, practical, and effective in downstream tasks. Before diving into the method, let's examine the overall framework to which the method applies. We use a latent diffusion model since it can be applied to high-resolution real-world images while reducing computational costs. The LDM utilizes the output of a CNN-based feature extractor as a condition, forming the representation we aim to extract. Here, our methods, dynamic Gaussian anchoring and skip dropout, are applied. Let's examine them one by one. First, dynamic Gaussian anchoring, or DIGA, consists of an anchor selection process and a feature alignment process. It attempts to separate features at attribute boundaries, such as red and blue, extracted by the feature extractor. The anchor selection process sets the anchors, which are the reference points, to pull boundary features towards. When setting the anchors, two considerations are essential. First, due to the high dimensionality, anchors need to be set flexibly rather than simply based on distances. Secondly, the number of anchors should be dynamically adjustable. Since there is no information given about the factors in an unsupervised manner, the method should be able to respond flexibly to any factor or attribute. Therefore, we employ a Gaussian mixture model-based approach to dynamically adjust the number of anchors, with the means of the Gaussians as the anchors. However, since the feature space is relatively high-dimensional, directly using a Gaussian mixture model with the EM algorithm would be infeasible due to the curse of dimensionality. Instead, we use high-dimensional data clustering methods to set the anchors. During this process, we introduce splitting and filtering steps to escape suboptimal stationary points in the likelihood function. The splitting process is based on cluster density and avoids setting anchors at boundary points that need boundaries. The filtering process eliminates anchors generated for very small clusters to prevent distortion in the feature alignment process. This anchor selection process is applied at the end of each epoch, using the features accumulated during the epoch for fitting. Feature alignment occurs using the selected anchors. New features are shifted towards the direction of the anchor with the highest responsibility among the Gaussians. Fully aligning features at the boundaries of two Gaussians could negatively impact the stability of the DM's training if those features are used as conditions. To prevent this, we define the shift using the formula shown here. Next is skip dropout, or SD. Our framework leverages the generation capabilities of diffusion models, commonly used in existing research. However, this structure does not ensure disentanglement learning for the feature extractor. Since the diffusion model is capable of unconditional generation, it might not utilize the random features in the initial training phase. Therefore, we propose skip dropout. Skip dropout involves a probabilistic dropout process to prevent the factor information in skip connection features from being stored in specific weights. This forces the diffusion unit to rely on the feature extractor for factor information. This simple yet highly effective technique enhances disentanglement. Now, let's look at the experimental results of our method. We first compared our model with state-of-the-art models on the Cars 3D, Shapes 3D, and MPI 3D toy datasets using the factor Von DCI disentanglement. Our model achieved the best or second best performance on all datasets, demonstrating the effectiveness of our method. This shows that the delineation of attribute boundaries within latent units using our method enhances the association between the latent unit itself and the factor. Next, we evaluated disentanglement performance and generation quality on the real-world Celeb dataset. Our method significantly outperformed existing methods, proving its exceptional applicability to complex real-world datasets. Additionally, it showed excellent performance in both metrics, indicating that our method does not suffer from the trade-off between disentanglement and generation quality. We qualitatively validated our model's results through latent interchange and attention maps. Latent interchange involves swapping a single latent unit from the source image with one of the target image's characteristics. The generated image retains most of the characteristics of the source image while adopting a target image's characteristic through the swapped latent unit. This figure shows images generated through latent interchange on the Shapes 3D and MPI 3D datasets. Consistent changes in image characteristics are observed across all images. Since our LDM uses cross-attention for conditioning, we can use attention maps to identify which parts of the image are generated by specific latent units. Our attention maps successfully highlight areas related to the actual factors. We further validated our latent units factor representation through downstream tasks. This task, proposed in previous research, evaluates how well a classifier trained with fewer samples can perform compared to one trained with 10 to 100 times more samples using GBT. The closer this value is to 1, the higher the accuracy with fewer samples, indicating improved learning efficiency. Our method demonstrated outstanding performance in downstream tasks, proving the practicality of our representation. In conclusion, our dynamic Gaussian anchoring and skip dropout methods demonstrated state-of-the-art performance in DRL, proving their interpretability and practicality. This emphasizes the importance of an inductive bias that not only indicates which factor a latent unit points to but also how well it reflects that factor. Thank you for your attention.